I am so pleased to invite Milwaukee Press Club President, Marianne Lazarski. Did I get that right, Marianne? Lazarski. I worked on it. All right, Marianne Lazarski, who is editorial producer for Milwaukee PBS, and she will introduce our panelists and speaker. Marianne?
It is Happy Punchki Day, by the way, so I would be remiss if I didn't say that. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see all of you here. I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have a great group of journalists with us today. And as I call your name and introduce you, please come up to the podium. Mary Stoker-Smith from Fox 6. Bill Glauber from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Deanna Gutierrez from WISN Channel 12, and Mackenzie Krieger from MATC Now, Milwaukee PBS. And I'd just like to say a few words about Grace before she comes up here and has her remarks, and after that, the panelists will ask their questions. So, Grace is from Wausau. Again, you probably appreciate Punchki Day. And is a senior at UW Madison, majoring in nuclear engineering. Yes, that's nuclear engineering. It's awesome. She was crowned on December 15th and is the third Miss Wisconsin to become Miss America. She won the talent portion of the competition, performing a piece from Vivaldi on her electric piano. Sadly, no performance today. Oh, it says electric violin. Did I say piano? I'm so sorry. I meant violin. But no violin today. She will spend her year as Miss America traveling the country to promote her advocacy platform of clean energy, cleaner future. She also seeks to inspire the next generation of female scientists, engineers, and mathematicians. So, without further ado, please welcome Miss America, Grace Stanke.
I got to adjust this up a little bit. And I'm finishing up my homecoming tour here, coming back to Wisconsin. As Miss America, I travel about 20,000 miles a month. So we wanted to make sure I was back here in Wisconsin celebrating the Miss Wisconsin organization and all the hard work that they put into it. So I'm just wrapping that up, and I would be lying if I said my voice was still in great condition, because it is definitely on the verge of being lost. So if it cracks, bear with me. But I'm truly so excited and honored to be here today. I was actually a part of the UW Madison Rotaract Club my freshman and sophomore year of college. And that was one of the first ways I was introduced to the Rotary Club and system that you guys have. And it's truly so special. You're supporting your community, and you're supporting youth. You're supporting each other through anything that you really want to do. You see an issue and you solve it. And that's what I like. I like people that take action. And I relate to that within the Rotary Club. One thing that also relates to that is the Miss America organization. People usually ask how I got involved, and I started when I was 13 years old. I was a violinist. I had been playing for about 5 years, and it was getting to a point that my family was like, hey, well, let's start figuring out ways you can help out financially. Violin lessons are expensive. So I started competing in local violin competitions to help earn some scholarships to cover those lessons. And I went up there. And it was a small room, a panel similar to this. And I got the violin up. And I started doing this, just shaking everywhere. Forgot my music. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. So 13-year-old me really wanted to become a better performer. And I looked up talent competitions, came across the Miss America's Outstanding Teen organization. It has now been changed to the Miss America's Teen organization. We dropped outstanding, a little bit of a mouthful. But at the time, I competed as Miss Wausau's Outstanding Teen, and I fell in love. I was always a taller girl. I never knew how to stand up straight. I never knew how to speak to an audience. I never knew how to interview. And the Miss America organization taught me that. And it continued to teach me that as I continued to network and just meet so many incredible people. In 2017, I became Miss Wisconsin's Outstanding Teen, and I'd like to tell a special story about this space right here. I actually made an appearance here on Veterans Day when I was Miss Wisconsin's Outstanding Teen. This entire room was filled with tables. Every single one of them was filled by veterans and their family from World War II, which was so incredible. I played my electric violin. I had my electric violin for that performance, and I remember walking through the crowd and just was playing and chatting with people as I was entertaining, because I had gotten over that fear of performing pretty quickly, thankfully. And I remember them asking for songs, specifically the Marines hymn, specifically so many unique songs that were special to them. And I was sad because I didn't know them at the time. But how excited was I when I realized I made the connections, I made the interactions so important that they invited me back the next year. Not as Miss Wisconsin's Outstanding Teen by the time I had finished that year of service, but they invited me back as Grace Stanke to perform again. And I made sure I was ready for any song requests, and it was truly so special to be able to connect with those individuals and to just see them again year after year after year. And some of them I didn't see, but I saw their families. And it's so special being back here in the same exact space where that all really started. And that's one of the reasons why I came back to the Miss America organization when I turned 18 and could compete in the Miss level. I value those connections. I value those stories. I value people. And that is something that I will forever see as a powerful ability of just hearing stories and uplifting them. I'm someone who has been through a decent bit as an engineering student, you know. I've experienced blatant sexism from my professors, from my peers, from my colleagues, from my bosses, anyone you can imagine. And never have I wanted more than just to have someone to listen to my story. And I'm here as Miss America to be that person, to listen to your story, to share it, to uplift it, and to continue helping in however I best can. But aside from that, I'm also a nuclear engineering student, and of course I'm a little biased and like to promote that too. So I'm really excited to have this opportunity to talk about nuclear energy and how it can continue to impact our society. Right now, we've got a lot of lights in this room, a lot of microphones, and here in Wisconsin, we've only got one nuclear power plant, only one form of reliable, safe, effective, zero-carbon energy that's producing only 14% of our state's energy, which, let's just stop and think about that, because I said only 14%. That's a lot for one power plant. That's a lot to power 14% of the state of Wisconsin. We should be capitalizing on that, and we should be utilizing nuclear energy for everything that we can use it for. So with that, I'm going to open it up here to the press club for questions. I'm excited. I'll gladly talk about nuclear energy, Miss America, whatever you would like to ask.
I get goosebumps when I'm around somebody like you, Miss America. I love a pageant, always have, not only for the sparkle and the glitter, but also for the substance that you talked about. It's a viable way for women in this day and age still to earn scholarship money and to advance their platform. I was going to start with kind of the soft question because, like, here I travel with flip-flops, even though I'm a journalist, but I'm going to go for the heavy. We're in a career right now. We're in this kind of, new era, so to speak, of women being advanced. But we still are at a point where in your career, I read that 87% of nuclear engineers are men. 12% and change are women. What do you plan to do, or what would you like to do to equal that playing field a little bit, to say to young girls who want to be just like you, we need to get those numbers up. STEM is a great way to do it. This is what you can do to make that a viable option for you.
Having visible role models like Miss America is something that I would have valued so much growing up. I've had a lot of conversations with women that are currently in C-suite positions that are successful nuclear industry professionals. And one of my biggest frustrations, and I know I would have been frustrated with this as a little kid, is those women have told me that they purposely have had to lower their voices when they walk in a room to be heard. They've had to purposely wear certain clothing in order to be taken seriously. And I'm so excited because as Miss America, I have this opportunity to stand up here in a sparkly dress and heels, which I will fully acknowledge, not a super, professional thing, but at the same time, for the one little girl out there that'll look at it and be like, man, so I can grow up, be a princess, or be somebody who isn't afraid to sparkle and be a nuclear engineer. That's what's special, is creating that pathway and encouraging them to blaze their own trail. Because for me personally, I feel like I'm going down this slightly unique path as a nuclear engineer who's not afraid to communicate, who's not afraid to advocate, But there are so many other trails to be opened up. And it's talking about that story and letting little girls know that they can create their own pathway, whether they want to do it in heels and a dress, or if they want to do it in a suit, however they want to do it. Oh, thanks.
So important, but what advice would you give to young girls?
Stay true to you. And I that's honestly my biggest piece of advice in general for in life, for local candidates that come up to me and say, hey, I want to be Miss America, what's your advice? Stay true to you, because it's really frustrating when I see people trying to be someone else or looking up to someone and saying, okay, I want to be just like Grace Stanke, Miss America. I don't want you to be just like me. Like to that little girl that I met yesterday who said she wanted to grow up to be a scientist, I want her to create her own path. I want her to not be afraid to say no or to stand up for herself or have that questioning attitude that is so direly needed in today's society.
I really like that answer. I think it's important to be your own person.
It certainly is. Certainly is. You only got one of you, so keep with it.
Thank you.
Grace, in the past you've said, as Miss Wisconsin, that you were able to help represent, advocate for the nuclear industry. With this new Miss America platform, where do you hope to take those efforts and how?
Yes, as Miss America, I actually spoke about this in my Miss America interview. This is a title to represent not just a state, but to represent an entire nation. And America is a global superpower, so why shouldn't Miss America be a global superpower representative, right? So I'm actually really excited to have global appearances, not just here in America, but traveling to Europe for the first time in my life. The longest plane ride I've been on is 4 hours, and that's because I became Miss America, so that'll be really interesting. But truly, I'm excited to encourage people not only on the nuclear side to get involved in grassroots advocacy. Just like yesterday, as the wrap to my homecoming tour, I had conversations with nuclear engineers who are working there right now. How can they go out into the Two Rivers area, the Manitowoc area, the Green Bay area, and talk about nuclear in a way that doesn't seem scary or doesn't seem like some weird high science, because it's just another way of changing lives for the better. But that's how I approach it from the nuclear side and talking with nuclear professionals. But with people overall, I like to bring it into just your lives. You know, every time you eat a banana, you're actually getting exposed to more radiation than if you live next to a nuclear power plant. Every time you go in a plane, you're receiving twice as much radiation as if you stood next to a giant dry cask full of nuclear waste. Because we know what we're doing in the nuclear industry. We know how to affect science and keep it safe and continue to introduce that.
Wanted to ask you about the Miss America pageant and how you believe it can remain relevant. As you know, the swimsuit competition was phased out, I believe, in 2019. What other things need to happen to go forward with the pageant, with the contest, so that it goes back on television, becomes a larger event? Is it held at a casino in Connecticut?
Yeah, Miss America is and always has been relevant, in my personal opinion. Yes, there are times where the financial adjustment and live TV did go away, but that's something that's okay, because I'm sure, as many of you know, as business professionals, things ebb and flow. But right now, we're at a pivotal point. Miss America is about empowering women to be themselves while also being feminine, or however they want to present themselves. We continue spreading that message. We're not a beauty pageant. We got rid of swimsuit. We got rid of judging on outward beauty. But it's a way to embrace femininity and continue to be a powerful woman and prepare yourself for a great future and prepare the world for great women.
Learn throughout your time as Miss America so far?
Gosh, well, one of the most valuable things is remembering how to, I meet a lot of people. Remembering names is such an important thing, but it is so hard. It is so hard when I go through and meet about 400 people in a day, right? But truly, one of the most important things that I've recognized is to stand up for myself. There's a lot of people that even in the moments immediately after becoming Miss America, they said, oh, we want you to do this with your social impact initiative. And I said, that's not really how it works. Staying true to who I am and staying true to what I believe in is one of the most important and valuable skills I've learned to this day. And it will forever be a huge part of me, because it wouldn't really work if I conform to something else or conform to different ways. That's not how we affect change. And that's what we need to do, is continue to change and continue to evolve.
So you talked about, you're wearing the crown, you're Miss America, but, is there a part right now that you kind of miss most when you take off the sash, you take off the crown? Tell us what the first thing you do is.
Oh my
Real
God.
talk.
Take my makeup off because my skin is dying every once in a while. But no, seriously, I love this job because I have that ability to make those connections. I have that ability to really be a role model for young women. And I've only got 1 year. No, I can't change the entire world in 1 year. That's just logistically quite difficult. But what I can do is change one person's world. And if I can change that one person's world, that will be enough for me.
With that role that we were just chatting about, it comes a lot of responsibilities. And some of us know in the industry that we're in, mental health weighs heavy on a lot of people. So you're a role model for a lot of young girls, a lot of people in your industry, even us that are sitting here in this panel right now. When it comes down to thinking about your mental health, how do you know when it's time to take a social media break, a appearance break, and value your mental health and prioritize that?
Oh my gosh, well, I need a therapist. I'll admit that. But when it comes to social media, I really have an ability, in a sense, to just put myself in that person's shoes and to understand why someone would post a hate comment or something negative is just something that I always sit there and, for me personally to look back at it as myself, it's like, how sad is it for you to go through and diminish a 13-year-old girl and what she said online or what she's doing for when she's standing up for what she believes in? That to me is just kind of sad, in my opinion, that you're taking that time and choosing to spread those words. Because treat others how you want to be treated. That is such a fundamental lesson that you thought we all learned at the kindergarten level, but some people don't really carry that through the rest of their life. So that's something that is so important to me to continue to advocate for. And when it comes to mental health, taking the time to be fully present in the moment. Even today, as soon as I walked in, I handed my phone to my travel companion here and said, take it, I don't want it, I'm not dealing with this right now. But to also go through and take time for myself and truly listen to other people really fills my soul. But for some other people, that's not how it fills their cup or fills their soul. Sometimes they need to take those breaks. And that comes down to time management and understanding how to prioritize that, how to prioritize yourself first.
Grace, in your opening remarks, you had one line in which you said you've experienced blatant sexism.
Yeah.
Is there an example or two that you could tell us and how you've dealt with that blatant sexism?
So I had a professor once tell me that I should not go into engineering simply because I'm a woman. There was no other reason. He said, you shouldn't be in engineering. And I asked him why, and he said, well, you're a girl. And I said, I'm a freshman, and you're lucky I'm really, really stubborn because I'm not leaving. But for that specific scenario, I definitely did walk out of the room, and I wish I had addressed it right away. But later on, I had that same professor for a course, and he kind of made a couple of passive-aggressive comments. I'm not afraid to call people out, and that's what I did, and he realized his mistakes, and he learned from it, and he's since established a better stance. Another scenario, though, was my peers, and this was one that I struggled with a lot because my peers would continue to dismiss my ideas, not listen to them, or even the classic, my idea gets repeated louder by a male colleague, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, well, sir, that's a brilliant idea. And I went, really? I only said it 6 times. So in that scenario, I called people out. I did the same sort of path that I took with the professor, but there was so much ignorance and not willing to listen. So in that scenario, I did take it to a different level, and I reached out to the department chair. At the University of Wisconsin-Madison, we have a very, very supportive community in the Department of Engineering Physics from the staff. And that's something that I was able to, unfortunately, it wasn't me that individual, my peer, would listen to. I had to get someone else, a male, for him to listen to call him out, to get him to realize the impacts of his actions. But he did, and since then, he has apologized, which is greatly appreciated. We're not out to get anyone, but sometimes apology is all I need.
You have such a good sense of self, such a strong conviction. It's so refreshing. I think that we'd all agree it's wonderful. There are a lot of studies that have come out in the media. We have done countless stories, and sometimes we're guilty of, perpetuating social media and, identifying on social media. What would you say to girls who, in this day and age, you're dealing with stuff we didn't have to deal with? When I competed in pageants, we didn't have Insta and Snapchat and Twitter and, everything else. So what would you say to these girls who are so identified and look to compare themselves to the girls behind a filter at times and behind all the gloss and the constant posting and the trying to live up to that expectation? And especially the people who, it's hard to get off that, right? It's hard for your generation to get off that, but they're saying the more time that you spend on social media, the more likely you are to feel bad about yourself, be depressed, etc. What can you say to them to take the break or to use the social media platforms to their advantage?
Curate a feed that does promote your positive health. I've actually gotten to a point that I feel very comfortable scrolling through social media because, you know what, I've gotten rid of the weird, crazy posts or the people that are so overly photoshopped that I'm like, this isn't real. Like, it's not real. But also taking the time to have that moment yourself, to post real content. I want to take this moment to spotlight actually my first and second runner-up to Miss America. They're both social media influencers with hundreds of thousands of followers. That's not me. I think the reason why they have so many, why they are at that point in life, is because they're real. They curate content that shows not just them getting glammed up and going out for the night, it also shows them having a night in and having no makeup on, laughing, sitting with their dog. Things like that are just real human things, because that's what we all are at the end. We crave that human connection. We crave just seeing human life around us. And as social media content creators or as just social media consumers, that's something that we can utilize the algorithm to our ability and our potential to create the feed we want.
Yeah. Rolling, right?
Yeah.
Somebody was rolling. You.
Is it recorded? I was going to say, the moral of this story, I think successful social media influencers are the people that do show that human aspect and show that real life aspect. Even as Miss America, a lot of the social media people that I work with, they say, record you, getting ready in the morning. I'm like, really? That's not super exciting. I don't have a fancy makeup routine. I do the bare minimum. I'm an engineer. I like efficiency. I don't do fancy things. And they're like, no, that's genuinely what people want to consume and what they want to see. Because everyone, especially my generation, I feel like, has gotten so sick of photoshopped bodies and photoshopped faces and overused filters. That's something that I'm personally over. And when I start seeing too much of it, I unfollow the account. I'm not afraid to do that. Even if it's someone that's been a friend from high school or something like that, or even a message saying, hey, like, is this really appropriate? Like, is this really a good way to curate your content? Sometimes that's enough to let people know, hey, this might not be the best.
Well, you radiate confidence and you're very self-aware, but how do you deal with that criticism under the spotlight? And what advice would you give to other people? Because that's got to be so hard sometimes.
Oh gosh, so for me personally, and this is probably not healthy by any means, I kind of thrive off of hate comments, which, like I said, is probably not healthy. But when I see people doing that, I just sit there and I'm a person that throughout my childhood, and I realized this honestly in the past 2 months, I just really like to, almost struggle against adversity or struggle against challenges in life. That's why I skipped a grade. That's why I took dual enrollment courses in high school. That's why I pursued academics so intensely growing up. And now when I see people say like, oh, well, she's just a nuclear engineering student, I go, okay, I've worked at the nation's largest nuclear fleet. I've worked in 2 world-class research labs, and I've continued to inspire hundreds of women to go into this field. Like, am I really just a student that's not qualified to speak on anything? Let's talk about that. So it kind of fuels me a little bit because I'm very spite-fueled, which is, like I said, maybe not healthy, but it's okay.
There you go. So with that, and with your nuclear engineering degree, I know that there are a lot of branches, a lot of specialties. I've done more research on nuclear engineer than I have probably ever in my life because of you. So thank you.
I'm glad.
What would be your dream job? Like, what would be that one place or that one thing that you would like to do, knowing that there are endless possibilities in this particular field?
For me personally, I believe that the chronic and potentially the fatal flaw of the nuclear industry is our communication. After accidents happened, the nuclear industry's solution was disappear, hide behind the curtain. We don't want anyone to know nuclear exists because we don't want to be acknowledged. But right now, we have gotten to a point that the general public, the amount of people that genuinely believe, how many of you think nuclear waste looks like green goo? Okay, I'm really, really happy about that because I actually meet a shockingly large amount of people that genuinely believe nuclear waste is glowing green goo. And it's not. It's just fancy hot rocks. That's all what nuclear science is, fancy hot rocks. But having that opportunity to talk about this gap between technical knowledge that nuclear engineers and scientists have, and then the general public and what they know about nuclear science, is a gap that needs to be closed. And that's really what I want to do within my career, is both, continue learning about the nuclear industry, what it does for our society, what it does to continue to promote people and building those connections, but also create that bond between the industry and the general public. So that way we don't have a misconstrued public perception anymore.
People in this audience who are interested in how to attract and retain young people in this state. You're 20, you're from Wausau. Do you plan on staying in the state? I realize things can change. And do you have any ideas about how the state can overcome this brain drain that's occurred among youth?
The discussion about the workforce is a really fascinating thing to me, because I'm speaking to most of you who I'm guessing probably worked at a company for 20 or more years. My dad, growing up, he started working with a company right out of college, and he worked there up until 3 years before he retired, which is insane to me. Like, I'm not going to lie, that is mind-boggling to me. I could not imagine staying necessarily at a company for 20 to 30 years for my entire career. Do I want to support that? Yes, but I will always make sure that I am taken care of. I am prioritized. I will make sure that if they're asking me to take on more responsibility, I'm receiving financial compensation for that. We're in this generation and this culture of people prioritizing their mental health. They're prioritizing themselves and making sure they're taken care of. And yes, I do want to serve a company for 30 years if they take care of me right. And that is the biggest thing that I think when it comes to recruiting young people. Make sure that they are receiving proper compensation and doing the best that you can to make sure that you're putting them first. Because yes, we want the company to succeed. Yes, we want the industry to succeed. But we need to make sure that we're okay too.
So you're tall.
Yeah.
And I'm sure at times that was, you felt so conscientious. You felt like, I just want to hide, I want to be with the rest, as we all have. Anybody who's got something a little bit different has felt like they just want to hide. Who do you attribute your strong sense of self, your spirit, your effervescent personality? Is that all from your parents?
Yes, partially, but I also contribute a lot of who I am to the Miss America organization. And that's not me being Miss America, that's me just saying how much I grew and learned and developed myself throughout my time in this organization. I'm a fiercely independent person. I don't know if you guys have picked up on that by now. So even once I turned 16, my parents were like, yeah, she's out of the house. Like, she sleeps here, she eats here, that's about it, though. And it wasn't in a sense that I was a bad kid or anything, but I wasn't afraid to go out and advocate for myself, to talk to administrators on my own. I didn't need to call my mom and say, hey, can you come into this meeting or anything? And that's something that I truly believe in, just staying true to you and staying true to what you stand for.
So looking back and being where you are now, what is something that you would tell your younger self if you could go back?
Slow down. So for context here, I really pursued academics heavily, so much. I mentioned I skipped a grade and I started taking dual enrollment courses my sophomore year of high school. So by the time I graduated high school, I was a very, very fresh 17-year-old with the equivalent of an associate's degree. And it didn't really take effect until I got into my college, into UW Madison, that I was like, wow, I've got the rest of my life to work and I really don't want to become an adult yet. I don't want to learn about health insurance. But honestly, enjoying being in the moment, because I feel like I did rush through a lot of my childhood. I didn't enjoy senior prom. I didn't enjoy going to homecoming football games. I didn't do that sort of thing because I was so focused on the so many other things that I was doing in my life, ranging from violin to being, even Miss Wisconsin's Outstanding Teen, to pursuing academics, to all of these things that just continued to consume my time. I didn't just stop and have fun. And I just really wish I had done that a little bit more growing up.
I think we can make that happen.
I've done a couple. Well, even on Saturday, we had our gala, our Miss America Homecoming Gala, and that was a ton of fun. We had it at UW Madison at Union South there, And, the DJs were there. Everybody was dressed up. It was a ton of fun. So there's plenty of opportunities for me now as Miss America.
A little sparkly instead of so
Yeah.
academic. All right.
Now, speaking about your future and what you have planned, and I know sometimes that conversation could be a little bit difficult. There are so many unknowns, but you received over $68,000 in that scholarship. When you were crowned Miss America, you had mentioned something about grad school, something about masters.
Yeah.
How is that for you, and do you plan on staying here in the state?
It's really funny because I had never considered going to get a master's prior to becoming Miss America, both because of financial implications and two, I'm really ready to be done with school in some ways, but also I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I'm at a point where, yes, I'm an advocate. I like talking. So it doesn't fully make sense for me to go get a master's in nuclear engineering. But does it make sense to go get a master's in communication or an MBA? I don't really know. So that was a big question, and it's a question I still struggle with. I don't know where I will go. I don't know where I will be. Right now I'm at a point as Miss America, I have a lot of really incredible opportunities on the table, some here in Wisconsin, some not. And I'm not making any final decisions for a while, but I think I'll definitely work for a year or two before I consider going back to grad school. I want to play out the early part of my career that hasn't even really started yet and decide what exactly is going to help me the most. Maybe I do want to go down the management track and aspire to be a CEO per se, and that would make more sense to get an MBA then. But if I want to stick with this communication and this advocacy and this even maybe it ends up gearing towards policy, then maybe I go get a poli-sci degree. It really just depends on what happens, and I'm going to take some time to enjoy that first year or two of working and to understand what role I do want to be.
The last question.
Oh, no pressure.
No pressure. But but just going back to winning the Miss America contest, very few women have done that. What do you remember? Do you remember it more from a video or from the live action taking place? And do you feel like you've been catapulted into a different life?
Gosh, so that's probably the most asked question is, what was that moment like? Couldn't tell you, beats me. I just remember not being able to breathe because I had a high neck dress and I was like, oh my God, get it off. But it was something that was really remarkable because at this point in time, I had opportunities. I had a job lined up for graduation, so I was initially set to just graduate this spring and be a semi-normal human being after being Miss Wisconsin for a year. But now as Miss America, like I said, I've got opportunities and I'm listening to anyone and everyone because I am an open book and I'm excited and I want to find the best fit for me. This comes back to prioritizing, young people prioritizing themselves in the workplace. So it's something that for me personally, I will see where I end up, but it's exciting. And Miss America, that whole experience is truly life-changing. We just had 22 of the state candidates here in Wisconsin. Alabama and Arizona were not a huge fan of the snow on Thursday in Lake Geneva. But that's okay, it's experiencing new things. That's what we're all about, learning. But it was truly so special because I get to meet so many incredible women. The 50 women I competed with, no, they didn't become Miss America, but they're still going to make a huge difference in their communities. I just finished speaking with the CEO yesterday in the nuclear industry, and she said, yeah, I'm a former state title holder. You don't got to be Miss America to be an incredible human, but we're an organization that's about empowering these women, building them up, giving and providing scholarships to continue and further their education, which is so very powerful, especially today.
Helping to take some of the stigma off of the pageant. It's not just about there's such substance there, and you've done such an exemplary job. It's an honor.
It's really fun being a nuclear engineering student because the amount of people that are like, oh my God, you're Miss America. What are you in school? And I go, yeah, I'm at UW Madison. What are you studying? I go, oh, nuclear engineering. And they go, oh, well, wait, what? It's really fun. But I have this opportunity to bring together two very, very different demographics of people that, if I'm being completely frank, they both need to learn from each other. Miss America is definitely a little bit more glamorous, a little bit more presentful in that sense. But the nuclear industry has been so hidden away for so many years that it's time that they learn from the Miss America organization. Additionally, they can also learn how to support and continue uplifting women so we can hopefully eventually someday have 50-50 women and men in our industry. And that's something that's so powerful. And I think the Miss America organization could continue learning how to support engineers and STEM industry people. I find that, sometimes in this organization, I did feel out of place as an engineering student. And that was a scary thing. But, now I'm here as Miss America and I'm continuing to make sure people do feel they have a place.
I think Grace would make a great investigative reporter too, in case that nuclear engineering thing doesn't work out. I'd like to thank our panelists of journalists for being here and for their questions. Thank you very much. So now it's your turn to ask Grace some questions. And if you have a question, there's a microphone set up here in the middle, and there's also a handheld mic. So please don't be shy. Please, I'm sure she's willing to ask a few more questions. She's getting a drink of water. She's getting ready for part two. So,
Grace, thank you for being here today. We appreciate it very much, your appearing. Two questions. First is, national nuclear policy is really driven out of Washington. So what, if anything, can we do here locally in Wisconsin to further influence nuclear energy here? Because you spoke about that. And the second is, wow, how do you manage the stress?
Well, I'll start with the first one here. So, for lack of better words, be annoying. Call your senators, write letters, make sure that your voice is heard. But also take the opportunity to explore your curiosity, to continue to learn, where does your power come from? Where does your electricity come from? What's it being generated by? How many of you know the answer to that? It's probably fossil fuels, I'm guessing, here in the Milwaukee area. But some of you might have solar panels or access to wind turbines nearby that's routed into your homes. Taking that time to learn and start the conversations. My biggest thing, get the Thanksgiving family fight going, Talk about nuclear power. It'll be a great way to spread advocacy and then continue to spread that message. In terms of handling stress, it's really making sure that a lot of the things that I do, I'm Miss America, I'm a classical violinist, I'm a nuclear engineering student, also a competitive water skier, which is one of the things that I truly love to do. Also, thanks Wisconsin for forever making me stuck with that part of my life. Love water skiing, and it's very big here in Wisconsin, in case you guys didn't know. That's something that I do just for fun and have fun with. Now, yes, do I tie in Miss America into that as well every once in a while? Sure, but it's something I enjoy.
Thank you so much, Grace.
Thank you.
You have been very, very inspiring, and I just love hearing from our younger generation talking about your accomplishments and your goals and being out there advocating and encouraging others to follow their dreams and to not let anyone talk them out of them. And so I'm Joan Johnson. I'm the library director, and I can't leave here without asking two questions. The first one is, you talked about academics and how focused you were on that. So I wanted to know which library was your library that was of most import to you and your accomplishments. And number two, what, if any, book do you recommend to those you are trying to encourage? Like, what is your recommended reading for a young person?
Yeah, so question number one, is it bad if I say Amazon? I really am all about supporting small businesses, but when it comes to books, as a college student, I definitely go on Amazon. It's just something that's a lot easier. But growing up, I did spend a lot of time in the Wausau Public Library. I remember as especially between like elementary school and middle school, I would literally come out with a stack of books this big, and I would read them all. Junie B. Jones? Okay. I knew Junie B. Jones. I knew her. But that was something that was so nice to have access to those resources. In terms of a book, I think one of the biggest misconceptions and biggest stories and biggest questions that people have is surrounding the nuclear accident called Chernobyl. I'm sure all of you are familiar. There's a book called Chernobyl that explains all of the scenarios and explain why it happened in terms that people can understand. And that's something that's so important, because that disaster I really put in a category of its own, because there was so many fundamental things wrong with it. And that book really dives into all of the details surrounding it. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's just one question for you.
Awesome.
Is there something that you can kind of pinpoint? What led you to nuclear engineering as a choice of study?
Ah.
Choice potentially.
This is a great story. Spite. Spite. So I was a 16-year-old girl. I was touring colleges, and I always knew I wanted to go into engineering. My dad was a civil engineer. He worked with the Department of Transportation, worked on building bridges for most of all of his career. So I always saw bridges get taken down and put up overnight, which was so just awesome to me. I loved seeing that growing up. I had that early exposure at a young age that led me to be an engineer. And I just didn't know what type. I was touring Texas A&M, and they had the Department of Nuclear Engineering, and I was like, man, what a flex that would be to become a nuclear engineer. I sat down with that department head, and I was like, so what do you actually do? I couldn't tell you a single thing that I actually took away from that conversation. I did not learn a thing, but I just said, it sounds really cool. So I went back home, and I had eventually narrowed down what type of major I wanted to be between aerospace and nuclear. I was talking to my dad about it because I so valued his opinion at the time as a 16-year-old teenager. And he said, don't go into nuclear. There's no future there. Everything's shutting down. Don't do it. So what did 16-year-old me do? How many of you have had teenage daughters? Tell me what I did. I went, watch me, Dad. So that's what I really started my time at UW Madison with, was nuclear engineering. But what kept me in the field was learning about how it impacted all of us in our everyday lives. You know, I talked about being on a plane or eating a banana. I learned how it saved my dad's life twice because he went through Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer not once but twice. He doesn't have a spleen, like he's lost a lot of organs to it, but he's alive because of nuclear medicine. There's incredible technology right here in Wisconsin in our backyards that's going to go through and just change lives. 1 gram, so one little sugar packet. Do we have them on the tables here? Those little sugar packets, 1 gram of an isotope called molybdenum-99 has the ability to diagnose 20 million people. 1 gram, 1 sugar packet. And that shows the power density, the ability of nuclear science to change lives at a fundamental level, ranging from health all the way to our just electricity that we generate. Throughout your entire lifetime, the amount of waste that you'll produce is going to be the size of a soda can when you use nuclear energy for your entire lifetime. Not just 10 years, not just 20, but everything. And that's on power density. So I really got exposed to it as a freshman in college when I got involved in research right away, which I highly, highly recommend supporting. Research is something that is so beneficial and so crucial for young minds to be exposed to at a young age. 1, because it helps those professors and those people running those research labs, because then they go, ooh, we're going to keep you all the way for a PhD. And I went, no, sorry. But that was something that really just changed my perspective on nuclear, was receiving that hands-on exposure. Yeah, thank you. Any others? All right, cool. Thank you, guys. I just want to say thank you so much for having me here. It's truly special to be involved in Rotary clubs, like I said, as a Rotaract club member at UW Madison. This was a point of learning, a point of wisdom for me to reach out to. So just know that you guys are doing really incredible things, and continue supporting that, continue supporting the youth. I love hearing about a golf tournament for scholarships. You know, as someone who participated in a women's scholarship organization, that's something that changed my life, literally. So thank you for everything you guys do.
Grace, 10 more seconds, Grace, before you leave. Do you ever think about being president of the United States? Has that crossed your mind?
I'm not going to lie, this is the 5th time I've heard this since becoming Miss America, and I'm slightly alarmed because I'm 20. I'm 20 right now. No, we'll see. We'll see where life takes me, but I appreciate it. Thank you.